and it's great to be here with you guys. We just started chapter 11, the introduction, last week. So we're going to continue with that. So I will share my screen and we will go ahead and start reading the gifts of the fatherhood. You have learned your need of healing. Would you bring anything else to the sonship, recognizing your need of healing for yourself? For in this lies the beginning of the return to knowledge, the foundation on which God will help build again the thought system you share with him. Not one stone you place upon it, but will be blessed by him. For you will be restoring the holy dwelling place of his Son, where he wills his Son to be, and where he is. In whatever part of the mind of God's Son you restore to this reality, you restore it to yourself. You dwell in the mind of God with your brother. For God himself did not will to be alone. To be alone is to be separated from infinity. But how can this be if infinity has no end? No one can be beyond the limitless, because what has no limits must be everywhere. There are no beginnings and no endings in God, whose universe is himself. Can you exclude yourself from the universe or from God, who is the universe? I and my Father are one with you, for you are part of us. Do you really believe that part of God can be missing or lost to him? If you are not part of God, his will would not be unified. Is this conceivable? Can part of his mind contain nothing? If your place in his mind cannot be filled by anyone except you, and your filling it was your creation, without you, there would be an empty place in God's mind. Extension cannot be blocked, and it has no voids. It continues forever, however much it is denied. Your denial of its reality may arrest it in time, but not in eternity. That is why your creations have not ceased to be extended, and why so much is waiting for your return. Waiting is possible only in time, but time has no meaning. You who may delay can leave time behind simply by recognizing that neither beginnings nor endings were created by the eternal, who's placed no limits on his creation or upon those who create like him. You do not know this simply because you've tried to limit what he created, and so you believe that all creation is limited. How then could you know your creations, having denied infinity? The laws of the universe do not permit contradiction. What holds for God holds for you. If you believe you are absent from God, you will believe that he is absent from you. Infinity is meaningless without you, and you are meaningless without God. There is no end to God and his Son, for we are the universe. God is not incomplete, and he is not childless. Because he did not will to be alone, he created a son like himself. Do not deny him his son, for your unwillingness to accept his fatherhood has denied you yours. See his creations as his son, for yours were created in honor of him. The universe of love does not stop because you do not see it, nor have your closed eyes lost the ability to see. Look upon the glory of his creation, and you will learn what God has kept for you. God has given you a place in his mind that is yours forever. Yet you can keep it only by giving it as it was given you. Could you be alone there when it was given you because God did not will to be alone? God's mind cannot be lessened. It can only be increased. For everything he creates has the function of creating. Love does not limit, and what it creates is not limited. To give without limit is God's will for you, because only this can bring you the joy that is his and that he wills to share with you. Your love is as boundless as his, because it is his. Could any part of God be without his love? And could any part of his love be contained? God is your heritage, because his one gift is himself. How can you give except like him, if you would know his gift to you? Give, then, without limit and without end, to learn how much he has given you. Your ability to accept him depends on your willingness to give as he gives. Your fatherhood and your Father are one. God wills to create, and your will is his. It follows then that you will to create, since your will follows from his. And being an extension of his will, yours must be the same. Yet what you will, you do not know. This is not strange when you realize that to deny is to not know. God's will is that you are his son. By denying this, you deny your own will, and therefore do not know what it is. You must ask what God's will is in everything, because it is yours. You do not know what it is, but the Holy Spirit remembers it for you. Ask him, therefore, what God's will is for you, and he will tell you yours. It cannot be too often repeated that you do not know it. Whenever what the Holy Spirit tells you appears to be coercive, it is only because you have not recognized your will. The projection of the ego makes it appear as if God's will is outside yourself and therefore not yours. In this interpretation, it seems possible for God's will and yours to conflict. God, then, may seem to demand of you what you do not want to give, and thus deprive you of what you want. Would God, who wants only your will, be capable of this? Your will is his life, which he has given to you. Even in time, you cannot live apart from him. Sleep is not death. What he created can sleep, but cannot die. Immortality is his will for his son, and his son's will for himself. God's son cannot will death for himself because his father is life, and his son is like him. Creation is your will because it is his. You cannot be happy unless you do what you will truly, and you cannot change this because it is immutable. It is immutable by God's will and yours, for otherwise his will would not be extended. You are afraid to know God's will because you believe it is not yours. This belief is your whole sickness and your whole fear. Every symptom of sickness and fear arises here because this is the belief that makes you want not to know. Believing this, you hide in darkness, denying that the light is in you. You are asked to trust the Holy Spirit only because he speaks for you. He is the voice for God. But never forget that God did not will to be alone. He shares his will with you. He does not thrust it upon you. Always remember that what he gives, he keeps, so that nothing he gives can contradict him. You who share his life must share it to know it, for sharing is knowing. Blessed are you who learn that to hear the will of your Father is to know your own. For it is your will to be like him, whose will it is that it be so. God's will is that his Son be one and united with him in his oneness. That is why healing is the beginning of the recognition that your will is his. I feel like that kind of speaks to a lot of the things that we were talking about earlier. Now, Liz and I got into some conversations about some things earlier, and I think even, the holistic fair, right? Getting to that point where it doesn't seem uncommon, right? That we all share the same will. Anybody have any comments on what we just read? All goes back to the whole at one ment principle, right? Be able to see God in all of your brothers because you are one with them. All right. Anybody have anything before we continue on?
Well, I'm listening, driving and listening. So.
Okay, good. I don't want to interrupt your driving, Liz. All right. I'm going to go ahead and continue to share. And we will go into the invitation to healing. If sickness is separation, the decision to heal and to be healed is the first step toward recognizing what you truly want. Every attack is a step away from this, and every healing thought brings it closer. The Son of God has both Father and Son, because he is both Father and Son. To unite having and being is to unite your will with his, for he wills you himself. And you will understand, and you will yourself to him, because in your perfect understanding of him, you know there is but one will. Yet when you attack any part of God and his kingdom, your understanding is not perfect. And what you really want is therefore lost to you. Healing thus becomes a lesson in understanding. And the more you practice it, the better teacher and learner you become. If you have denied truth, what better witnesses to its reality could you have than those who have been healed by it? But be sure to count yourself among them, for in your willingness to join them is your healing accomplished. Every miracle that you accomplish speaks to you of the fatherhood of God. Every healing thought that you accept, either from your brother or in your own mind, teaches you that you are God's son. In every hurtful thought you hold, wherever you perceive it, lies the denial of God's fatherhood and of your sonship. And denial is as total as love. You cannot deny part of yourself because the rest will seem to be separate and therefore without meaning. And being without meaning to you, you will not understand it. To deny meaning is to fail to understand. You can heal only yourself, for only God's Son needs healing. You need it because you do not understand yourself, and therefore know not what you do. Having forgotten your will, you do not know what you really want. Healing is a sign that you want to make whole, and this willingness opens your ears to the voice of the Holy Spirit, whose message is wholeness. He will enable you to go far beyond the healing you would undertake. For beside your small willingness to make whole, he will lay his own complete will and make yours whole. What can the Son of God not accomplish with the fatherhood of God in him? And yet, the invitation must come from you, for you have surely learned that whom you invite as your guest will abide with you. The Holy Spirit cannot speak to an unwelcoming host because he will not be heard. The eternal guest remains, but his voice grows faint in alien company. He needs your protection, only because your care is a sign that you want him. Think like him ever so slightly, and the little spark becomes a blazing light that fills your mind, so that he becomes your only guest. Whenever you ask the ego to enter, you lessen his welcome. He will remain, but you have allied yourself against him. Whatever journey you choose to take, he will go with you, waiting. You can safely trust his patience, for he cannot leave a part of God. Yet you need far more than patience. You will never rest until you know your function and fulfill it. For only in this can your will and your Father's be wholly joined. To have him is to be like him, and he has given himself to you. You who have God must be as God, for his function became yours with his gift. Invite this knowledge back into your mind and let nothing that obscures it enter. The guest whom God sent you will teach you how to do this, if you but recognize the little spark and are willing to let it grow. Your willingness need not be perfect, because his is. If you will merely offer him a little place, he will lighten it so much that you will gladly let it be increased. And by this increase, you will begin to remember creation. Would you be hostage to the ego or host to God? You will accept only whom you invite. You are free to determine who shall be your guest and how long he shall remain with you. Yet this is not real freedom, for it still depends on how you see it. The Holy Spirit is there, although he cannot help you without your invitation. And the ego is nothing, whether you invite it in or not. Real freedom depends on welcoming reality, and of your guests, only the Holy Spirit is real. Know then who abides with you merely by recognizing what is there already. And do not be satisfied with imaginary comforters, for the comforter of God is in you. Hello, Tim. Glad to have you here.
Hi, I'm just unmuting there.
Yeah. We just read The Invitation to Healing, chapter 11. Great section. Wow, I really enjoyed that, right? I mean, it basically just says, who are you aligning with? Love or fear? And if you feel if you don't feel wholly joyous, you've aligned with fear, right? That's what the Course says. So that's how we know. If we're not feeling wholly joyous, we've aligned with fear. That's who we've invited in. But it just takes a little willingness to ask the Holy Spirit, right? To be your host instead of fear.
yes, that inclination of that awareness, and then that you're not, and then that, like you say, the little willingness to be able to say, yeah, I've been duped again. I've tricked myself again. It's always us too, which is kind of a self-made self-made joke.
Yeah, sure.
Well, what I love about the cyclical nature of things, of the cosmos, is that we talk in the course about the little willingness and the letting go of the separated self. We're not really letting go of who we are. We're actually becoming more in touch with who we are. But as we let go of the separated self and think we're in lack, we're actually have expanded to be bigger than ourselves. And when it all comes back around, what at least I have gained is confidence, because I'm supported by the cosmos, by God,
Mm,
by the all, and I am the all, and the all is me. It is the connections
mm,
are so great that it allows for confidence and just a different pair of glasses that you put on as you live in the world, but it comes back around to the higher self, because now I'm basically experiencing that oneness on such a level that I'm not even seeing in my mind or experiencing. When I ask, I no longer can ask a separate entity, i.e. God, for anything, because it keeps pointing back to me, my higher self.
mm.
And so it's come full circle where you kind of let go of yourself and you think, oh my God, I've spent my whole life creating this identity and things that support my identity. How can I lose, quote unquote, this? And you don't lose anything. And what happens is you become such a greater self because you're no longer separated. And therefore, you don't have to have defense, you don't have to have static, you don't have to have lack, fear. Those things disappear, and you just get the true, clear vision of what it's like to live life as a spiritual being, absolutely choosing to be here for the experiences.
Well said, Mary. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Yeah. It goes back to what we had read a little bit ago about the grandeur of God, right? Instead of the grandiosity of the ego. And like what we just read, if it just takes the little willingness, and once that spark, that little willingness, you kind of start blowing on it, like a fire. When you're starting a fire, you just let a little breeze in, like the Holy Spirit's like the little breeze that blows on that spark, and then all of a sudden it's like
Mhm.
illuminated, and you're like, wow, I want more of that, right? So you don't even have to want it all. It's just a little willingness, and then the Holy Spirit will do the rest, because then you'll remember that you are God, right? That grandeur of God will just completely come in and fill you and remind you
Yeah,
of the truth about who you are.
yeah, good.
Beautiful.
That's true. Yeah.
Hello, Cynthia.
I said, yeah.
Hi, sorry I'm late. I had a leak under my sink and they just left.
Oh,
So
shoot.
I had them here helping.
Oh no.
I gotta share this. It was so good. I actually, oh, here it is. I gave it to my wife. This is her mom called and left a message for me, and it was, oh my God, she was asking for this peppermint tea. This is off track, but I'll bring it back here. Um, So, when she tried to think of the brand, and when I talked to her a few minutes ago, she remembered saying this. She called it extraterrestrial instead of celestial,
That's
celestial
cute.
extraterrestrial. So anyway, that little note there will I'll write it better. That'll go into some funny words that if she ever decides to check out of her body, she's almost 95.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
So anyway, yeah, that she's a great teacher because she kind of bugs us and I'm out of have you ordered my stuff from Walmart? Yeah, that's her my wife's job is to order all the stuff. So,
All the stuff.
but she's one of my greatest teachers because when I find I'm taking stuff like like a burden, it's like, no, Tim, no, this is just another thing. And I was reflecting on Ram Dass this morning, the last time we saw him here in Tallahassee. I've seen him other places and heard him talk, but he's talking about, he went through, I think he had a stroke, and then there was before that, there was his dad became just really bad off, and he had to take care of him. I mean, doing all the stuff. And he said, it just became another thing. It was just another way of being present.
Yeah.
And if I wasn't, then it would show me that I wasn't. So whatever we're doing in life, it's there. It's like sort of like, I guess you could have your blindfolds on and be bumping along these little bumpers that are along the highway, but you're probably not going to kill yourself. And if you do, it's just another thing. So
Yeah.
we're indestructible. Anyway, enough.
Yeah. All opportunities to learn, right? And it's all just about learning that do we will to create like our Father,
Hmm.
share everything we have with our brothers. I mean, it's simple, not always easy, but simple. And that's it, right? Just to be like God. That's it. Do what God would do. Share love with your brothers. Done.
Yeah, it's true. But we make decisions about, well, I can't fully share with this person or that person. And then there's the trap.
And there's the teacher, right?
And
That's
there's
our
the teacher.
guru. Those are all of our lessons, all of our opportunities
Yeah.
to learn. And the more we learn, the brighter that light becomes and the easier it becomes to be in that place of true creation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just taking those opportunities and seeing them for what they are, right? Instead of going, oh, here we go again. I don't want to deal with this person or I don't want to deal with this situation, right? Look at that and say, why? Why am I not wanting to deal with this situation? What is it
Right.
that this is trying to show me and teach me about who I am?
Mhm.
It all goes back to who am I? And if I am aligning with the ego, obviously, because I'm not feeling wholly joyous, I have a choice now. Now I can let go my ego, right? And
Mm.
align with love and see it from a different place. All
Yeah.
right. And the next one, I think we're going to talk just about that because it is from darkness to light.
Mm.
All right. Whenever you are weary, remember you have hurt yourself. Your comforter will rest you, but you cannot. You do not know how. For if you did, you could never have grown weary.
Mm.
Unless you hurt yourself, you could never suffer in any way, for that is not God's will for his son. Pain is not of him, for he knows no attack, and his peace surrounds you silently. God is very quiet, for there is no conflict in him. Conflict is the root of all evil. For being blind, it does not see whom it attacks. Yet it always attacks the Son of God. And the Son of God is you. God's Son is indeed in need of comfort, for he knows not what he does, believing his will is not his own. The kingdom is his, and yet he wanders homeless. At home in God, he is lonely, and amid all his brothers, he is friendless. Would God let this be real when he did not will to be alone himself? And if your will is his, it cannot be true of you, because it is not true of him. Oh, my child, if you knew what God wills for you, your joy would be complete. And what he wills has happened, for it was always true. When the light comes and you have said, God's will is mine, you will see such beauty that you will know it is not of you. Out of your joy, you will create beauty in his name, for your joy could no more be contained than his. The bleak little world will vanish into nothingness, and your heart will be so filled with joy that it will leap into heaven and into the presence of God. I cannot tell you what this will be like, for your heart is not ready. Yet I can tell you and remind you often that what God wills for himself, he wills for you. And what he wills for you is yours. The way is not hard, but it is very different. Yours is the way of pain, of which God knows nothing. That way is hard indeed, and very lonely. Fear and grief are your guests, and they go with you and abide with you on the way. But the dark journey is not the way of God's Son. Walk in light and do not see the dark companions, for they are not fit companions for the Son of God, who was created of light and in light. The great light always surrounds you and shines out from you. How can you see the dark companions in a light such as this? If you see them, it is only because you are denying the light. But deny them instead, for the light is here and the way is clear. God hides nothing from his Son, even though his Son would hide himself. Yet the Son of God cannot hide his glory, for God wills him to be glorious and gave him the light that shines in him. You will never lose your way, for God leads you. When you wander, you but undertake a journey that is not real. The dark companions, the dark way, are all illusions. Turn toward the light, for the little spark in you is part of a light so great that it can sweep you out of all darkness forever. For your Father is your creator, and you are like him. The children of light cannot abide in darkness, for darkness is not in them. Do not be deceived by the dark comforters, and never let them enter the mind of God's Son, for they have no place in his temple. When you are tempted to deny him, remember that there are no other gods to place before him, and accept his will for you in peace, for you cannot accept it otherwise. Only God's comforter can comfort you. In the quiet of his temple, he waits to give you the peace that is yours. Give his peace that you may enter the temple and find it waiting for you. But be holy in the presence of God, or you will not know that you are there. For what is unlike God cannot enter his mind, because it was not his thought, and therefore does not belong to him. And your mind must be as pure as his, if you would know what belongs to you. Guard carefully his temple, for he himself dwells there and abides in peace. You cannot enter God's presence with the dark companions beside you, but you also cannot enter alone. All your brothers must enter with you, for until you have accepted them, you cannot enter. For you cannot understand wholeness unless you are whole, and no part of the Son can be excluded if he would know the wholeness of his Father. In your mind, you can accept the whole sonship and bless it with your light. Your Father gave it. Then you will be worthy to dwell in the temple with him, because it is your will not to be alone. God blessed his Son forever. If you will bless him in time, you will be in eternity. Time cannot separate you from God if you use it on behalf of the eternal. That was so good. I was listening to a podcast today by Luis Lunin, and it was, I have to take a look and see what it was, but it basically broke down like different psychologies, and it's called, I don't know if you guys have heard this or not, but it's called The Basics of Spiral Dynamics. And they've been color coded. So they kind of go through almost like a sequence of awakening, almost very similar to the guide that David Hawkins created in his book, Power versus Force. And it was a map of consciousness that kind of shows your level of where you are on this chart of expansion and enlightenment and growth based on your energetic frequency, which was all measured through kinesiology, but also reflects your God view, right? So this spiral dynamics was basically saying the same thing, but it color coded it and basically was like, during the caveman dark ages, the color was beige. It was all about survival. And then it rose and rose and rose and rose through these, different colors of orange and red and survival and what's in it for me and how can I survive? And then getting into, anarchy and people doing horrible things to each other. So then blue came in with all the rules, which is why we have stop signs and street lights, and why, we have government that's trying to protect the masses with all these rules. And then going on to the next level of people saying, but wait a minute, you're taking our rights away. And then there was like, again, back to, you can't tell me what to do. And it went up and up and up and up and up in this dynamic where you could see how, you've been at these different phases and these different stages in your life. And then finally it said, you get to this place of yellow where now you can see it all, right? You can see all the colors and you can see what's happening. And now you realize, well, yeah, let's just say wearing a mask, the people who didn't want to wear the mask were basically saying, this hurts me. And I don't want to do that because it's going to hurt me on so many levels. But yet the people that were wearing masks were saying, yeah, but you're not caring about others. You need to wear the mask to care about others. And it's not just about you. But in that yellow phase, it's like, yeah, well, I can see both points. I can see how you're both at that place in your mind. That was what you felt was true, right? So from yellow, you could see that. And then the next level beyond the yellow is turquoise. And in this place of turquoise, now it's really about what A Course in Miracles is talking about, at one-ment, right? Where you see all of your sons as yourself, all the sons of God as yourself, all of your brothers are part of you, and you can see and understand and love them for who they are, regardless of what they're spewing, because you can see that they're operating from that place of wherever they are on this map of enlightenment, you know, that, okay, you're afraid because this, and this have happened to you. So obviously you don't want this to happen. And you're holding on to this belief because these other things happened to your family or people that you loved or people that you cared about and those beliefs could be in complete opposition to the beliefs that you're holding, right? For your own personal self based on your own personal experiences, but you can see how it's all playing out, right? So from this place, you can see how we're all here trying to just be safe and be in that place of empowerment, right? The grandeur of God. But the ego's got its hold on us because we're aligned with fear. So instead of being in the grandeur of God, coming from that place of love and sharing with our brothers, we're in the grandiosity of the ego, coming in that place of lack and there's not enough. And I have to hold on to this because I'm not safe. So it's interesting, you know, you can't get to the kingdom of heaven without all of your brothers. So the whole thing goes back to, let me see the light in you. Let me see the pure love in you. Let me accept you as my brother. And then I can be as God, because then I can love you as God would love you, just because you are perfect in every way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
ignoring. Yeah, go ahead, Mary.
No, I was going to say, I don't think it was quite as well done as you're describing, and I missed who the author was, but Michael Singer did something similar that really opened my mind into how, you know, what our consciousness was at the time that religious beliefs and other social, you know, structures came about and how those levels, you know, continued to mature as, you know, as we evolved and opened our minds to things. And that was, I loved that. So who is the author again?
The author of the podcast I was listening to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It
or
was,
how would I find the podcast? Could you send me a link to the podcast?
sure, yeah. It's
I love
Pulling the Thread is the name of the podcast. It's by Elise Lunan, and it's The Basics of Spiral Dynamics by Nicole Churchill.
um,
Yeah. But it's just so interesting, you know, it really allows you to kind of take a look at it like, oh yeah, I could see. And, you know, she was naming big political figures, as you could imagine, as like, well, this person was orange. And there's, you know, here's the positive aspects of orange. Here's the negative aspects of orange. And this situation is red. Here's the positive aspects of red. Here's the negative aspects of red, you know. So it was just really interesting to be able to take a look at it from
yeah,
all these different perspectives.
And it's also wonderful that it is balanced in that way. It's all a reflection of whole, because in every whole, there may be some things that each of us think or experience as positive and negative, but they're still all integral parts of that whole and
Right.
remain in its characteristics.
Right.
yeah.
If we can use that as a basis for being able to see all of the sons of God as our brothers and as pure reflections of love, instead of being fearful because we don't like what they're saying or doing and we feel like we're attacked, right? Because all attack is merely a cry for love. If we can just see it as a cry for love and give it love as a response, then we can go to that kingdom of heaven with all of our brothers in our hearts.
Yeah.
Any other comments on this? Did this strike a chord with anyone else? Or should I continue? All right, let's keep going. the inheritance of God's Son. Never forget that the sonship is your salvation, for the sonship is yourself. As God's creation, it is yours, and belonging to you, it is His. Yourself does not need salvation, but your mind needs to learn what salvation is. You are not saved from anything, but you are saved for glory. Glory is your inheritance, given you by your Creator, that you might extend it. Yet, if you hate part of yourself, all your understanding is lost, because you are looking on what God created as yourself without love. And since what He created is part of Him, you are denying Him His place in His own altar. Could you try to make God homeless and know that you are at home? Can the Son deny the Father without believing that the Father has denied Him? God's laws hold only for your protection, and they never hold in vain. What you experience when you deny your Father is still for your protection, for the power of your will cannot be lessened without the intervention of God against it. And any limitation on your power is not the will of God. Therefore, look only to the power that God gave to save you, remembering that it is yours because it is His, and join with your brothers in His peace. Your peace lies in its limitlessness. Limit the peace you share, and yourself must be unknown to you. Every altar to God is part of you, because the light He created is one with Him. Would you cut off a brother from the light that is yours? Would you not do so if you realize that you can darken only your own mind? As you bring him back, so will you return. That is the law of God, for the protection of the wholeness of His Son. Only you can deprive yourself of anything. Do not oppose this realization, for it is truly the beginning of the dawn of light. Remember also that the denial of this simple fact takes many forms, and these you must learn to recognize and to oppose steadfastly without exception. This is a crucial step in the reawakening. The beginning phases of this reversal are often quite painful, for as blame is withdrawn from without, there is a strong tendency to harbor it within. It is difficult at first to realize that this is exactly the same thing, that there is no distinction between within and without. If your brothers are part of you and you blame them for your deprivation, you're blaming yourself. And you cannot blame yourself without blaming them. That is why blame must be undone and not seen anywhere elsewhere. Lay it to yourself, and you cannot know yourself, for only the ego blames it all. Self-blame is therefore ego identification, and as much an ego defense as blaming others. You cannot enter God's presence if you attack His Son. When His Son lifts His voice in praise of His Creator, He will hear the voice for His Father. Yet the Creator cannot be praised without His Son, for their glory is shared, and they are glorified together. Christ is at God's altar, waiting to welcome His Son. But come wholly without condemnation, for otherwise you will believe that the door is barred and you cannot enter. The door is not barred, and it is impossible that you cannot enter the place where God would have you be. But love yourself with the love of Christ, for so does your Father love you. You can refuse to enter, but you cannot bar the door that Christ holds open. Come unto me who hold it open for you. For while I live, it cannot be shut, and I live forever. God is my life and yours, and nothing is denied by God to his Son. At God's altar, Christ waits for the restoration of himself in you. God knows his Son as wholly blameless as himself, and he is approached through the appreciation of his Son. Christ waits for your acceptance of him as yourself and of his wholeness as yours. For Christ is the Son of God who lives in his Creator and shines with his glory. Christ is the extension of the love and the loveliness of God, as perfect as his Creator and at peace with him. Blessed is the Son of God whose radiance is of his Father and whose glory he wills to share as his Father shares it with him. There is no condemnation in the Son, for there is no condemnation in the Father. Sharing the perfect love of the Father, the Son must share what belongs to him, for otherwise he will not know the Father or the Son. Peace be unto you who rest in God and in whom the whole sonship rests. There it is again, saying, love your brother. Love all your brothers.
Yeah, those times that I've been in this state, and it's exactly what he says, and there's this innate knowing that once you give up and you're, well, for some reason I'm getting the what was the story where was it the whale eats the sailor, but he's okay. Remember that? I can't. Is it Herman Melville? Whatever. But for some reason that image came to mind. Um, you gotta be willing to, you know, to give it all up. The one really big time that I had that when I walked in this, and I think Mary, you've heard me speak of this, was I was like 22 at that time, and 3 days, 3 nights, you know, did not end until I had this thought of, can I use this for my own didn't even think of the word personal, blip, gone. But the whole point was, and my friend that went into it with me, and I just saw him just a few weeks ago, and unfortunately he speaks of as my experience or my state or whatever. I mean, he was as much a part of it as I was. I can remember as it came through me, him saying on the other bed in the dormitory, yes, that's it. I mean, the truth is always maximal. And so when he's talking about here that we have to take all of our brothers with us, you absolutely have to. There's no way you can put one judgment on one person out of the 7 billion and something we have and say, I forgive everyone but he or she or whoever for doing this. It's gone.
Right.
It's an equal opportunity creator, and you have to be fully present, fully creating, and listen. It's more than a listening. It's a continuous guidance that you just always know the. I don't know. It's beyond the words that have been given us to explain. Although he's done a great job writing it here. So anyway, there's my little bit, and seeing Tom a few weeks ago, it was really sad. He and his wife are just sliding down the, into the, body degradation and all this stuff. And here Denise and I, oh my God, there's been days when I've walked more than 10 miles, the body here is 74. And I'm very thankful for that. And it gives me a way of, just getting out, soaking up the energy and hopefully giving it back. But then again, this has nothing to do with getting out walking or anything. This has to do with completely letting go of your preconditions, your misunderstandings about what you thought it was, because it's not. It's not. You can hear these words, but until it happens, it doesn't. So anyway, and then it's like another thing I used to explain in one course we had. It's sort of like this lawnmower. You got to do all this tunings on it. Once you get that started, it runs and runs and runs until you put some kind of condition on it. So anyway, I'll let it go with that. I don't want to be rambling.
No, it's,
One thing I'd like to add to that, if I may, is that for me, I found that if I don't look at things as a have to, I kind of bristle at I have to do something. Just for me. But I think of it as God giving me opportunities to investigate, opportunities to form my own value to something, opportunities to explore what's right for me in my communing with this world that I chose to be in, and my higher communing with my higher self and my God, allows me these opportunities and these privileges, if you will, except that we all have them. So it's not that I'm more privileged than the next, but to ride this magnificent ride and enjoy every minute of it. So it just, it opens up and then it gives me choices within that welcome, if you will, that expansion. So I'm not ruled by anyone. I don't have that kind of rigidity. It's all open and flowing, and it's my choice to resonate with whatever is for my highest good. And just in that choosing of using language differently, it creates a whole other space in our minds to make it easy to do these things which we think are difficult, because we create that hard thing because we're always overcoming our own use of language.
Yeah, I like opportunities rather than say a word like task or, oh, now I must get to work.
yeah, another opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
I also love that whole story by Andrew Weir about the egg. Every time we talk about our brothers, I keep going back to that I am all of my brothers because there is only one, right? And all of my incarnations back in time, forward in time, equal with time is still all me. I'm all of them. I am Tim, I am Cynthia, I am Mary. You are me. We're just having these separate experiences because we're all from that mind of God, right? It's just one mind, and it's all these offshoots that look and seem and appear different, but it's only one. It's only one.
Yeah.
One sun. And the Course in Miracles says it over and over and over and over again, that there is only one sun. And how could that be? how could there be only one sun if we see everybody that looks so different? The only explanation to be, it could be that I am all of them and you are all of them. And we are all of them. And so if we can finally look at each one of us and say, oh, that's me being Tim. That's me being Cynthia. That's me being Mary. You know, that's me being all these different expressions of the one mind of God. Then you can really look and be like, wow, I love me being Tim. I love me being Cynthia. You know, I love me being Mary. You know, I love that I can be all of these expressions of the one mind of God and have all of these different colors and all of these different aspects of being. And maybe I'm angry in some of them, and maybe I'm grateful, and maybe I'm sorry, and maybe I'm hurt, but it's still all me experiencing and growing and expanding in consciousness and awareness. And as one of me grows and expands, all of me grows and expands. And that's how I'm moving toward that place of at one-ment, because we're all growing and expanding as separate aspects of ourselves. And that really helps me to embrace sonship.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Without judgment, right? Without like, well, this person is being lazy or this person is being this. You know, it's like, whoa, that's me. That's me being lazy. Why am I being lazy right now? You know, like, why am I being angry? You know, and then I can look at it differently. I can kind of change the narrative and go, oh, okay. I can just send love to myself, my separated self that is appearing angry, because I know that anger means I feel alone and I feel separate and I don't understand that I am part of the at one-ment.
Yeah, we really
In
can't
that
take it
experience.
personally.
Right.
That's the whole trap, is to see separate Tim is being burdened for whatever.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
trap.
Yeah.
Need a little trap meter you could wear on your lapel or something. With just warning, danger, danger, Will Robinson, if you remember
That's
the old
right.
Lost in Space thing.
Love that thing. Well, it was great to be here with you guys. I know we're at the end of our time. Does anybody have a burning desire to share anything before we close? No? Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Great to have you here. And I guess I'll see you all next week, hopefully.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you so
Right.
much, Terry.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Mary. See you guys next week.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Yeah, Mary, everybody.